All right, here we go. Everyone, my name's Will de Bruin. This is my very first YouTube video, so go easy on me. Um, Today, I just really wanted to kick off, this channel by talking about how we were able to build a six figure a month, 7 figure year eComm business, and how that all came about. Admittedly, it's been a longer road, but what we found is that once we got the wheels turning, the growth was absolutely exponential. We experienced that hockey stick growth that you're used to seeing with businesses and investors once they've done the groundwork and how that's able to take off. And so our story begins back in 2013. Myself and my brother were in corporate jobs in property and finance. And one day we read the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. This one right here. And this became our absolute driving force and our Bible to starting our business. I must admit that, the motivation to start our own thing, start our own e-commerce business was there, but also we were kind of being pushed out the door with our I guess, lack of satisfaction with our current jobs. The motivation was there to create something, to experience better lives, more freedom, more automation, but also the stick, I guess, of having boring rundown jobs. We thought there was more to life. We definitely don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, but we definitely come from a family of hard workers. And so in 2013, we basically gave both our resignations. We're in different companies at the time, and went out on our own. And so we had so many ideas of what we wanted to start in terms of online businesses and creating value for people. We, as I say, didn't come from any background of entrepreneurs. We didn't come from any money to kind of do these sorts of things, but we were young and naive enough to have a crack and back ourselves. And so the first business that we thought of was actually a coffee supply business. Now, we loved coffee. That was kind of really how it came about. It was as simple as that. And we felt that we could provide some value in supplying coffee. So basically in logistics. After about a month of leaving our jobs and into this venture, we did a lot of market research. The major thing was actually going and speaking to cafes, speaking to coffee bean suppliers. And we soon discovered that it was incredibly competitive market with incredibly low margins and incredibly tight knit. And so what I mean by that is that, these coffee roasters and coffee suppliers had relationships with, say, the farms over in Ethiopia and wherever the beans were actually coming from. So there was a long line of relationships there, which we couldn't possibly sort of break into in a short period of time and with no experience. And that's how that kind of evolved into maybe we could do logistics for these people. We could take it from literally the roastery to the cafe. Again, we kind of did some numbers on this. My brother, with an accounting background, ran through all these numbers and basically came to the conclusion that it would have to be, distributing tons and tons of coffee beans a week to even turn a profit. And so whilst we were still kind of pursuing this, we were kind of going through these numbers, asking ourselves these hypothetical questions about where we want to get to and how this would actually create, freedom for us based on the 4 Hour Work Week. We came across a concept that my brother Sam was into, which was cleansing the body. And at the time, he was into cold pressed juice. Had a domestic Neo machine at home where he created cold pressed juice. And literally, it came about as simply as this: we were sitting down in a cafe discussing our business, having a coffee, and Sam had a juice in his hand. We were talking about the viability of a coffee business and where that was actually going. And on the other hand, he had the juice and said, I would actually give this to my grandmother to drink. I'll give it to my baby to drink. It's that good for you. Versus a coffee that's kind of like, you don't drink too many throughout the day. You don't give it to kids or elderly. It's not necessarily for everybody. Whereas a juice was more the sign around the belief in the actual product about how good it is for you. So cold pressed juice, for those that don't actually know, is literally the rawest ingredients you can possibly get. It's a slow juicing process that maintains the integrity and the vitamins and the minerals that gets burnt out of something like a centrifugal juicer that goes at really high speeds and froths. And you'll notice the difference with a cold pressed juice is when it's actually juiced, it'll stay the same color that it actually is for basically 2 to 3 days, whereas a heat treated or centrifugal juicer will basically start to brown, as soon as it's actually been produced. And so with that coloration, that's obviously the nutrients remaining intact. And so it's the most pure form of juice that you can actually provide. And so this conversation around the actual health benefits and our belief in how good this product actually was translated into what Sam was actually experimenting himself, which was actually juice cleansing. And so with that idea from that conversation that we actually had, this is when Karmic was actually born. Having a conversation, talking about something that we actually believe in, and actually just starting to run with it and get the wheels turning. I can tell you for an absolute fact that literally within a week of having a conversation with our parents about our new idea, they had spoken to their friends just literally organically, no direction from us, and had people asking them if they could actually get some of our juice. Now, that was an immediate sign that we were actually onto something. We didn't know who our target market was going to be. We didn't know how the program was going to be. And yet within a week of actually coming up with this business idea and somebody talking about it, we had actually had customers already. And so they gave us cash. We basically we put in some crappy old plastic bottles and dropped it around to them. It was like $100 for a 2-day juice cleanse for 2 of them, for a husband and a wife. And as I say, that was enough for us to actually get the wheels turning. So from that point, we said, this thing's got legs. Let's go out to the broader market. There must be people just like them. So basically, the basis of what became our business was around people that knew or had experience with juicing their own juice, or potentially doing juice cleanses themselves. This was still a really new concept, at least to us. I'm sure there was lots of kind of underground people doing it themselves. But we felt that we could cut out that effort, because we knew so many people who had bought a juicer, said this is way too hard, and put it straight onto their kitchen bench. And that became our target market. Those that were educated in this sort of thing already, knew the value in what we were selling, and could obviously see or had experiences in the past about the actual health benefits. So that was one thing we learnt really, really quickly, which became extremely important to who we're actually targeting moving forward. So from that first customer being our mum's friends, we then went out to our broader networks, being our friends and contacts, and started to just basically pound the pavement, talk to everybody we could, and get the juice out there to as many people as possible. We started really, really with really small targets in terms of, let's just get to 10 clients a week. 10 clients a week was a massive milestone when we hit that. Probably a month in, we were probably doing 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 4 and 5 for a little while, and then we hit up some gyms, some football clubs, where some offices where people started to do them together, and we get kind of a mass economies of scale there. We could offer some discounts to help them out, but all along this period of time, we were iterating our product, our packaging, our customer service, absolutely everything. We were doing everything, I dare say, on the fly, but more so in an iterative process. We were getting a feel for what people were experiencing as a good experience, what people wanted as improvements, what guidance people needed. We figured out that you can't just give someone a bunch of juice and expect them to figure it out themselves. And so we basically, came up with an idea that we should have an instruction manual, for a start. We started by doing it on a piece of printed out A4 paper. It was as simple as that, but it gave people the instructions to use the product the way we needed them to use it to get the results that we actually started to get. And literally from day one, the quality of the product was so ensured and so intact, because it was handmade by us, hand packaged, hand bottled, hand delivered. We actually we had conversations when we actually delivered it to clients so that we could explain the process. Extremely manual, but that was almost the most important time to A, build the relationship, and B, actually talk through the process with them so that they would apply the program properly. As I say, we were lucky enough that these people initially were a little bit experienced in this, so they kind of had a bit of an idea, but there were definitely plenty of people who who weren't. And so that was really great to be able to interact with them as well. And so, look, basically, a couple of years gone by, we basically looked to expand. We were originally juicing out of, our kitchen that was signed off by the council, and we hopped around from kitchen to kitchen, premises to premises, based on leases, based on cash flow, and based on capacity as well. And so we essentially did that for 3-4 years, where we didn't have a permanent premises for about 3 or 4 of those years. And again, as soon as we grew out of that, we had to move, or the lease expired or something like that. And it was only when we actually grew into a bigger premises that we essentially filled that void, filled the space, filled the demand. And so that became a really important thing in our growth. And so for the first, I would say, couple of years, we probably hit 10K a month, which is a massive milestone, but we talked in the way of sort of cleanses. So 10K a month, basically divided by 100 is sort of like 100 cleanses. And so that was a huge milestone. By a week, I mean a month, right? 100 a month was really solid for us. That was a big milestone. And then our goalposts changed and our goals changed. So we went for 100 a week, 200 a week, 300 a week, and it basically scaled up from there. And so the really key things that became important to us in our growth was certainly number one being the customer experience and getting the results that it actually promises. That created a massive baseline for us to be able to leverage off in terms of word of mouth referrals, influencer referrals, and repeat customers. Our repeat customer rate has always been about 60%, a month. And so we only have to pay to acquire that customer once. Their lifetime value becomes infinite after that. We have some clients who have spent $20,000 with us since we've been in business. And that is proof in the pudding that what we sell is of value to them, of higher value than the price they're actually paying. And no one could put a price on your health. So that's where we have, I guess, a real advantage in that. And so, here we are, 8, 9, 10 years on, and we've just cracked, $800,000 a month last October. This is now April. Everybody's had a bit of a quiet, I guess, or lesser period of time between December and April 2022. But we are continuing to grow. We know our next plan in terms of expansions, and we've got plenty of opportunity there. But I think the real thing that we focused on when we break it down that contributes to our success is definitely the product number one, in terms of the customer experience and the relationships that we've built with them. The second thing is having a well-rounded marketing strategy. So we've done SEO, we've done paid ads, we've done Facebook and Google, obviously, organic stuff, and keeping that as well-rounded as possible, because there's never just one source that people find you at or research you on. It's about having multiple channels that you can focus on, but not wasting time on certain platforms either. So we test something like Pinterest and TikTok. If it works, we keep doing it. If it doesn't, we cut it. We test things very, very quickly so that we can get the feedback and move on to something else. But obviously doubling down on what's working and what's not, putting more money into ads if they're profitable, taking some out if they're not, and understanding the seasonality of our business. As long as we see it going up, each year in terms of the month correlations, i.e., April last year to April this year, then that's a good win for us. We can understand the periods of time it's going to be quiet and accommodate for that sort of thing. And so this was really just a really quick discussion, I suppose, around us and our business and how we started. And the fact that it was humble beginnings is really rewarding, but we're starting to share our journey a lot more with people now, and really, I suppose, inspire people to do the same thing. We started with literally nothing. We started with a domestic juicer, some fresh veggies from the South Melbourne market, and a dream to take the cold pressed juice cleansing to Melbourne. And so that's basically our story. Really keen to hear any questions, any thoughts that you may have. I love to hear the stories. We love to hear people's stories about how they're starting businesses, and that's what drives us, these days, to help people do that. And so I hope this was helpful. I hope our story gave you some value, gave you some ideas. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you've got any questions, but bye for now. Cheers.